What if something in the early universe looked exactly like a star, but wasn't powered by a star at all? James Webb may have found something that was already incredibly powerful when the universe was less than 660 million years old. It appears as a tiny, intensely bright red object, but hidden inside that tiny glow may be something far more extreme, a rapidly growing black hole. And if that's what astronomers are seeing, this strange object could hold a clue to one of James Webb's biggest mysteries, the little red dots. But to understand why this object is so unusual, we need to go back to the moment James Webb began looking deep into the early universe. When astronomers first saw these strange red objects, they didn't immediately know what they were, and the more Webb observed them, the harder they became to explain. When James Webb looks deep enough into space, it isn't just looking far away, it's looking back in time. And among the distant galaxies and developing structures, Webb began finding something unexpected: tiny, extremely compact objects with a distinctive reddish appearance. Astronomers began calling them little red dots. They appeared when the universe was only hundreds of millions of years old, and there were enough of them to suggest that this wasn't some rare cosmic accident. Something was producing them. But what? At first, several possibilities came to mind. Maybe they were unusual young galaxies. Maybe they were powered by actively feeding black holes. Maybe their strange appearance came from dense clouds of gas surrounding those black holes. They considered other explanations too. The problem was that none of the ideas seemed to explain every observation perfectly. The little red dots had become a genuine astronomical puzzle. And then, James Webb found something that may give astronomers a completely different way to look at them. The object is called MOM-BH-1. Its name comes from the Mirage or Miracle Survey, or MOM for short, that identified it. BH refers to the researchers' proposed black hole interpretation, and this object is extraordinarily distant. Its light comes from a time when the universe was less than about 660 million years old. That's only a small fraction of the universe's current age. Yet even in that extremely young universe, something was already producing an enormous amount of energy. It appears incredibly bright, so bright in fact, that its luminosity is difficult to explain with an ordinary star powered by nuclear fusion. And that's where the mystery really begins. Now here's where the mystery gets interesting. If you look at a normal star, its energy ultimately comes from nuclear fusion. Deep inside the star, enormous pressure and temperature allow atomic nuclei to fuse. That process releases energy. It's the reason stars shine. But there is a limit to how much energy a star can produce. And this mysterious object appears to be operating on a completely different scale. Researchers estimate that its luminosity is around 100 billion times that of the sun. That is far beyond what a normal star could achieve through nuclear fusion. So if it isn't a normal star, what is producing all that energy? This is where the black hole star idea comes in. Imagine a young black hole at the center, not an enormous black hole sitting inside a mature galaxy, but a rapidly growing black hole surrounded by an enormous amount of dense gas. As matter falls toward the black hole, it doesn't simply disappear. It spirals inward, heats up, and releases tremendous amounts of energy and radiation. Now imagine all of that happening inside a thick, dense cocoon of gas. That surrounding gas absorbs some of the energy and reprocesses it, changing the light that eventually escapes into space. From far away, instead of seeing a clearly exposed black hole, an observer might see something that looks more like a compact, glowing red object, almost like a star. But the energy isn't coming from nuclear fusion. It's being powered by matter falling into the gravitational pull of a rapidly growing black hole. That's the basic idea behind a black hole star. But there's an important distinction. The black hole itself isn't shining like a star. The enormous brightness comes from the material surrounding it as gas falls inward, heats up, and releases energy. And because that black hole may be buried inside a dense envelope of gas, the entire system could appear from billions of light years away as nothing more than a tiny, glowing red dot. That may be what makes this object so interesting. Something that looks deceptively simple from the outside could be hiding a rapidly growing black hole at its center. But this is where the discovery matters most. Remember the little red dots? Those strange, compact red objects that James Webb has been finding in the early universe. For years, astronomers have been trying to understand what could be producing their unusual properties. One possibility is that rapidly growing black holes hidden inside dense clouds of gas power them. And now, astronomers have an object that may offer a remarkable clue. MOM-BH*-1 could serve as a kind of cosmic laboratory. If the light we see comes from a black hole buried inside a dense envelope of gas, astronomers can compare its spectrum with the spectra of the little red dots. And when researchers model what the light from an object like this would look like inside a young galaxy, something striking happens. Its predicted spectrum can resemble the characteristic signatures seen in the little red dots. That raises a fascinating possibility. Maybe the little red dots aren't an entirely separate mystery after all. Maybe at least some of them are powered by the same kind of hidden black hole engine, but seen at a different stage of its evolution.
And that leads to a much bigger problem. One of the biggest mysteries in modern astronomy is how supermassive black holes became so massive so quickly. James Webb has found evidence for massive black holes at surprisingly early times in cosmic history, but the universe didn't have billions of years to build them. Some of these black holes appeared when the universe was still extremely young, so astronomers need to understand, how do you turn a small black hole seed into a monster with millions or even billions of times the mass of the Sun so quickly? A black hole star could potentially be part of that story. Instead of starting with an ordinary black hole, slowly feeding in a relatively quiet environment, imagine a young black hole surrounded by an enormous reservoir of dense gas. It could have access to huge amounts of material. That could provide an environment where rapid growth becomes possible. If objects like these existed in large numbers during cosmic dawn, they could represent an important stage in the early growth of massive black holes. But astronomers aren't declaring the mystery solved for an important reason. This object has not been definitively proven to be a black hole star. The black hole star interpretation is a model that explains the observations. Scientists still need to test alternative possibilities. That's one of the most important things to remember about discoveries like this. James Webb doesn't simply take a picture and reveal exactly what an object is. Astronomers measure its light. They break that light into a spectrum. They look for chemical signatures, absorption features, emission lines, brightness, temperature, and other clues. Then they compare those observations against physical models. And sometimes, the best explanation is something we've never directly observed before. But best explanation isn't the same as proven fact. That's where the science is right now, and that uncertainty is exactly what makes it so interesting. Because whether it ultimately becomes accepted as a new class of object or turns out to have another explanation, James Webb has already given astronomers something extremely valuable, a new clue about the strange objects appearing in the early universe. The little red dots may not simply be mysterious red galaxies. They may be signs of rapidly growing black holes hidden inside dense clouds of gas. And this object may give astronomers a rare glimpse of what one of those systems looks like before it becomes part of a larger galaxy. So the next time James Webb sends back an image of a tiny red dot from the early universe, astronomers may be looking at something very different from what they first thought. Not a star, not simply a galaxy, but a powerful black hole, wrapped inside a cocoon of gas, shining across billions of light years. And if this strange object really is a black hole star, then it may be giving us a glimpse of something enormous, how the first giant black holes began to grow. And the strange part is, we may only be seeing the beginning of the story.